So right now we have six systems across the world. We have one in a food pantry in Tel Aviv that serves African asylum seekers who come into Israel hoping for a better life, but because they don't have access to all the benefits that citizenship gives them,
Sure.
uh, they find it hard to put food on the table for themselves and for their families. And
Hey,
then we
listen, I'm going to introduce you properly and then ask you a bunch of questions and get you
okay,
to explain all this because I don't want people to miss it.
okay, yeah.
Um, yeah, my name is Frank Schaeffer. This is a podcast called In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer, and my guest today is Stephen Hoffman. And Stephen was inspired to action following a visit to Scandinavia. No, to Sindanaya. Say that for me, Stephen.
Cindiana.
Sindiana of Galilee, a nonprofit organization in Israel where Arab and Jewish, getting this correct, Arab and Jewish women work together closely, cultivating social change as they grow produce in hydroponic gardens. And then you made a movie to document the work he encountered. Stephen created the award-winning original short film, Growing Peace in the Middle East. And to continue to raise awareness, formed a namesake nonprofit, Growing Peace Inc. Growing Peace is engaged in bringing hydroponic systems of food banks to ensure food security for refugees seeking asylum seekers. Um, Please subscribe. This is my little boilerplate to In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer on Apple Podcasts. And to my Substack, it has to be said at frankschaeffersubstack.com. And let me start at a different kind of a place here, Stephen, and that is I was saying Hoffman and you're Hoffen.
Hoffen, yeah.
Yeah,
HO.
and my producer Ernie just said Hoffen, not Hoffman. Okay, so having stumbled around on all this introduction, we'll do the interview right. So Stephen, I'm interested in what you're doing because I have a grandson, Ben, who is managing three regenerative farms in upstate New York. Right now, they're planting tens of thousands of nut trees to replenish the soil and to change the way the earth behaves. There was another movie called about this called the Biggest Little Farm that came out about 8 years ago that was very successful. And he's in regenerative farming. He studied this in university. So before we get into what you did, let's back up a little bit and talk about your background in terms of agriculture or studying or what you got into that led you to your interest in hydroponic farming, which is something I'm very interested in terms of just the way produce is created. Before we get into the good stuff you've been doing with the kind of social activism that's attached to it. So let's talk about the sciencey aspect of this. What got you into this? Who are you? What are your interests aside from this? What why why did you get into something to do with hydroponic uh, agriculture?
Definitely, yeah. So, hi, my name is Stephen Hoffen. I'm 16 years old. I'm a rising junior, and I'm from New York City. And so what really got me into hydroponic farming was when I visited this organization in Israel called Sindiana of Galilee. And their mission was to try and create peace and coexistence between the Jewish and Arab populations in Israel. And they tried to do this by engaging women from each group in different sorts of activities, hoping that they would collaborate with one another and work together to find common ground. And then that'll happen during the summer of 2019. The following summer, I learned about one of their specific projects, which is called the hydroponics project.
Hmm.
Uh, that's where I was introduced to hydroponics. Basically, they installed hydroponic systems in the homes of Jewish and Arab women, and then they set up an online platform where they could communicate, say, I'm growing basil. Here are a couple tips, blah blah blah, that sort of thing,
Yeah,
so that they could share tips and become friends with one another and create peaceful coexistence that way. So I created a documentary film highlighting Cindiana and then also specifically highlighting their hydroponics project.
yeah.
Um, and ever since I did research on hydroponics, I've been really captivated by the technology ever since.
Let's just start with the documentary. Where can people see that who are going to get interested in what you're doing?
Yeah, so the documentary you can view that on my website, which is growingpeaceinc.org.
And we'll
Um,
put links to that with this, by the way, so people don't have to remember that. We will link to what Stephen is doing.
Yeah. And on my website, you can also find a bunch of different information about our mission, our goals, our current projects, history, that sort of thing, the impact that we're making, and of also all of our social media as well.
Yeah, before we get into the work that you've been doing in terms of Israel and just this idea of collaboration over a good project like that, which I love, by the way. And I looked at the documentary, and there's wonderful footage of the women growing these things in PVC pipes. I don't know what the I've seen a lot of that technology around, so I kind of understand it. But I'm interested in just your interest in the science of hydroponics itself. You're 16, and other than being trying to be a peacemaker in the Middle East, which is a tall order for anybody at any age, and I'm not being facetious, I commend you on that. Talk about your interest in hydroponics as a means of agriculture in view of everything from the space program to um, earthbound agriculture with diminishing water supplies, but also just all the problem we have with used up soil, the kind of thing my grandson Ben is into in his regenerative farming project. All these dilemmas, play into this. It's a very big field. So talk about your interest in that first, and then we'll get into these communes or communities that are collaborating on peace ventures and projects around hydroponics.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess you're mentioning things like the space program, which actually, this is one of the first times I've been asked about that. But I actually think hydroponics, is especially useful, when, when you're considering, like space travel and things like that. I'm actually very interested in that as well. But it's just because, well, I can give you a quick breakdown of what hydroponics is, for viewers that aren't as familiar with the technology.
Sure.
Basically, in traditional farming, you have these seeds that are planted into the soil, and the soil is the primary thing that gives the plants the nutrients that they need to grow.
Mm.
But in hydroponic farming, we can basically take all the nutrients that you would normally find in soil and put them into a concentrated water solution. And that's what provides plants the nutrients that they need to grow. And so because of this, we can create a bunch of different, I guess, mechanisms or ways to produce
Mhm.
with hydroponic farming. So the systems that we use primarily are like tall cylindrical towers where you
Yeah.
have a reservoir at the bottom, and then water gets pumped up to the top and then trickles down. And then you have plants, pots on the side of the tower, that receive the water
Yeah.
from these roots. Um, but basically, hydroponic farming in general, because of this new way, we don't have to use any soil at all,
Yeah.
which is more climate friendly because climate change is reducing the amount of fertile land and soil that we have to grow food on.
Yeah.
So it's a benefit in that sense, but also because we're able to grow vertically, vertical farming, it saves space and makes hydroponic farming perfect for urban areas like cities, which is where we're installing them. It also produces food at 2 to 3 times the rate of traditional farming,
Yeah.
and all the year, even during the winter, if you're growing indoors, which all of our
Mm.
systems are. And finally, I mean, these are just a couple of the benefits, but I guess if you're a consumer of hydroponics, you can know that your produce is organically grown because we're growing indoors, so we don't have to worry about any bugs or pests. So we don't use any chemicals, pesticides, herbicides,
Mm.
anything like that.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah. I'm a hydroponic consumer because there's a company in the Northeast. I don't know the name of the company. I'd have to look on the packaging, but uh, that sells what from a supermarket that I go to. This isn't some fancy, uh, you know, artsy fartsy organic store. This is just the regular local supermarket market basket in the Northeast of New England. They sell a couple of brands of incredibly good lettuce salads all year round, the whole head with the little root cluster right out of the hydroponic thing. They don't cut the root cluster off. They put it in the packaging with that little root cluster from the hydroponics. It's one of my favorite things to buy. It's always fresh. Like you say, there's never pesticides. It has all the advantages of organic food, and none of the bugs. So I do eat my weight in that kind of salad and like it a lot, and some other things as well. Plus, I'm an avid gardener, using soil. But talk a little more about the your interest in hydroponics in terms of being 16 and looking at your future. Is this something you would get into beyond the present application of indoor growing in these communal spaces? Are you looking at that as a kind of a career? And if so, what would be the application you're interested in?
Yeah. So I guess I could say I'm I'm hoping to go to college one day. Hopefully that's the goal. But
Yeah,
I think in college I'm very interested in sustainability and agriculture, and hydroponics combines those two into sustainable agriculture.
yeah,
And so I would definitely be interested in pursuing something related to environmental science or sustainable agriculture in college. As far as career wise, I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do for later in life. I haven't really figured that out yet, but I think hydroponics. I mean, the people that I work with to help install the systems,
sure.
they work at a company that helps install systems. That and they have jobs there, so I mean that could be a potential route. I'm not exactly sure yet, but hydroponics is definitely a huge interest and passion of mine that I definitely
So,
want.
so let's back up and talk a little bit about your introduction to these groups in Israel, growing hydroponic agriculture produce in their homes. What's the origin of that group? You were visiting as a tourist, as a visitor. Did you go to see them because you were interested in what they were doing? Is it coincidental? Give me that story and how you got involved in that kind of peace mission, if you could call it that. And then let's talk about the practicalities of it, actually, what they do, which is really the subject of this film that we'll give links to so people can watch it, see the footage of it. How did you get into this? You're sitting in the US, you don't know about hydroponics or the Israeli-Arab peace process. I'm presuming you've heard of these things, but and you go from that to this incredible hands-on involvement where you're now, you could say helping to put this together, leading in this outfit. What's that journey?
Yeah, definitely. So I took a trip to Israel with my family in the summer of 2019. Summer it gets quite hot there, but I was very happy to be there, and I was particularly looking for a way that I could give back to the community or do something related to the conflict going on in Israel at the time. And I
Hmm.
heard about this organization called Sindiana, and I visited there with my brother. I went to their visitor center where actually the two co-founders of Sindiana, this one Israeli woman and this one Arab woman, they toured us around their facilities. They showed us this film. We made a little pita bread with them, which was nice. And so that's how I got involved with Sindiana. And I stayed in touch with those founders, and eventually during the following summer in 2020, in the midst of COVID, I actually learned about their hydroponics project. I did
Now,
some
were you
research.
in the States at that point?
Yeah. So I live in the States, and
Sure.
I visited Israel for a quick trip during 2019.
Yeah.
Mm. And so I was inspired by their hydroponics project and by their mission in general. And so what I did is I wanted to create a film because I also really loved filming. I watched some David Attenborough document. You know David Attenborough? Like
Sure.
he makes like these nature documentaries. So I loved documentary filmmaking. So I made a documentary film that highlighted Cindiana's hydroponics project and their mission as a whole.
Hmm.
I submitted it to a bunch of different film festivals, and that's how my career with, I guess, growing peace and hydroponics really got
Yeah,
started.
and got to be known. So let's update that to the present. What is your involvement right now with those projects, and how have they grown or not grown or shut down or opened up more? I know there's a story there. Tell us just what's happened since in terms of the project itself.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't actually have like I'm not like affiliated with the hydroponics project at Cindiana. I just
Sure.
use it as like a base of inspiration to start my film.
Yeah.
But I know with regards to the conflict in Israel right now, there's a lot less, I guess, willingness to try and find common ground between
Yeah.
groups, and Cindiana it's been a lot tougher. Their mission has been a lot tougher to achieve, especially right now with the given conflict.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, which is very sad, of course, but I guess you could break your story into two parts. well, three really. One, this interesting story that begins with you barely into your teens. If you were in your teens, I'm very bad at math, by the
Oh,
way.
I
So
think like
you
11
were
or 12.
young, quite young, and then you get interested in this project, and it inspires you. And since then, it really has taken two paths. One, the idea of bringing peace in the Middle East through numerous contacts between ordinary people, and the hydroponic collaboration just seems like such a good idea. Then there's the science itself that you've gotten interested in. And I threw out mention of the space program at the beginning here, which is, of course, one of the usages if we're ever going to be on Mars or somewhere. Um, and then in addition to that, there's just, I'm interested in you, age 16, having done this kind of idealistic step in your life. You've made a movie that is good and has gained some traction. So what do you see as your next steps, either as a filmmaker, making more projects like this, the hydroponic interest, and then just, you're a young man who wants to do interesting things. Do you see any kind of firming up of some of those lines of some of those pursuits? Or are you still just kind of trying to figure out what the next step is? Has this given you a clear idea of sort of, okay, whatever else happens, I want to go into some form of high tech, sustainable agriculture and or filmmaking or peacemaking in the Middle East? I mean, these are weirdly divergent things, but they all came together in your interests. I just am interested in where you see yourself and what you think your future holds.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Honestly, I don't really, that's a, I know what my passions are. I know what I hopefully want to be able to study in the future.
Yeah,
Filmmaking is a huge interest of mine. Hydroponics, sustainability, environmental science, those are all
yeah.
big interests of mine. As far as where they might come together, in my future career, I'm honestly not really sure.
Yeah.
I know what my goals are as far as what I want to continue doing with Growing Peace, which is keep installing more systems and then also hopefully set up a board of directors to help manage my projects and help manage expansion.
Mhm.
But I don't really know, honestly, where my career is going to go. I'm still quite young, but yeah.
Where's Growing Peace right now that you want a board of directors? What does it actually consist of at this moment? And where would you like to see it go realistically in the near future? What do you need a board for? What would you like to see happen? What is it doing now, if anything?
Yeah, so right now we have Growing Peace is in two primary locations. One is we have one system in a food pantry in Israel, and then we have the other five systems at scattered around food pantries, prisons, community centers in New York City primarily, or just yeah, entirely New York City. But the board of directors, I think, as we get more projects, I think the board of directors will help to manage and oversee those projects. And also, I'm looking to pull in other youth. It's going to be primarily youth-led
Mhm.
board of directors. But the board of directors will really help to expand Growing Peace past just New York. If we can get people in different locations around the U.S. or maybe even the world, different states, that will help Growing Peace expand just
Mm.
outside of New York, and that's
Yeah.
going to help us acquire more funding, and just continue to broaden our impact and help alleviate more food insecurity.
In these five centers that are part of it now, what are they actually doing? Are they growing hydroponic food? Are they talking about it? Are they actually doing it? What are they doing?
Yeah, so we have successfully installed six systems, one in Israel and then five in New York. They're all currently in operation.
And
Um,
where are they, in people's homes, backyards, sheds? When you say prisons, I mean, what do we picture here?
Yeah, so the one in Israel is at a food pantry, and then we have one. The first one we installed was at the Ladies of Hope Ministries Hope House, which is
Now, when you
basically
say we installed, who are you talking about, and what are you installing physically? You show up with some PVC pipe and a bag of water. I mean, talk us through it.
yeah. Okay, so I guess the process of installation is we as an organization. It's really just me. By I like to say we, Growing
Sounds
Peace.
bigger. We, yeah, I refer to myself as we often. That's called the royal plural, by the way. Long before, people were worried about pronouns, royalty always called themselves we. So
Mm.
you and I
At
have
the
that.
royal we, my parents say that a lot.
The royal we, yeah, okay. So it's you and your shadow, but I feel the same way. Except I have a producer. His name's Ernie Gregg, but other than that, it's just me. So I get it.
So I guess we as an organization, we find a suitable partner to work with. Obviously, right now we're primarily relying on our existing partnerships to because a lot of the partners that we have right now actually refer us to new places that would potentially benefit from a
Sure.
hydroponic system. So we go there, we scout out, I guess, where we want to install the system, pick out the room that in their location that we want to install it.
Well, tell
And
me about the prison. Give me that story so I get a picture of how a 16-year-old with his mighty army of one, shows up at a prison and they go from zero to you find a room and now you're growing food there. It's hard to imagine how that happens.
yeah, sure. So, I mean, the prison was really just a referral from a previous project that we did. It was the first project we did in New York City, collaboration with Topeka Sam and the Ladies of Hope Ministries. They're involved with helping out formerly incarcerated women who come out of incarceration, and we're all, I'm sure, a lot of us might be familiar with, not like personally, but know about how tough it is for formerly incarcerated people to find jobs, get
Sure.
reintegrated into society and communities. So that's what Topeka's organization does, the LOHM. And then she referred me to the prison, which is the Edgecombe Residential Treatment Facility. It's a minimum. It's not like a Al Capone kind of
Yeah.
the prison. It's a minimum security prison. And she referred us there. I met the superintendent. And I showed him some of my projects. We discussed, and then we eventually agreed that we wanted to do a project there. He was super excited because the produce that we would be installing would be the system that we would be that the produce that we would be growing would be
Sure.
going to the prison kitchen, which would be going to the staff and some of the residents there. So we, from that start point, once we agree to have a system installed, then we bring over our hydroponics partner, Green Food Solutions, and they scout out the room that we want to install in, do a quick calculation to see how many towers we can fit. And then they send us along a proposal. We review it, make any edits if necessary, and then we send them the funding that is required to install the system. They order all the parts from a separate company.
Mhm.
They don't actually manufacture the parts, but they order the parts from a separate company. And then we have an installation day where we actually just go in with Green Food Solutions. I'm there too. I've been at the installations of all of the systems in New York. And so I go in with Green Food Solutions and we just install the system in a couple hours. And from there, we can either do a training or we can hire Green Food Solutions for something they call farm service. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Are you in on any of the training yourself? Have you experienced that part of it?
yeah. I very early into my relationship with Green Food Solutions, before I even installed my first system in New York,
Mhm.
I did a quick training with them, and they gave me a whole breakdown. And then if we do a training at a system that we install, then I'm there too, and I'm there to you know learn more a little bit myself, make sure I'm not getting rusty on any of my skills, and answer any questions that they have.
Could you put together a system like this yourself yet, or are you a ways from that?
Why? Like I can't like manufacture it. I can't manufacture the system, but like if I received all the parts, then I could put together
You
a
could do
whole.
it yourself. So basically, if I'm ever stuck on a desert island and we have a water source and I've got you handy, we can eat.
Yeah, if we have like all the parts and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure to take the parts with us. There's this wonderful program on the BBC out of London called Desert Island Discs. And besides, and they go through what your favorite music was. They do this with celebrities, and then you're allowed to take one other thing with you to the desert. So if I ever get on that program, I'm going to be saying, okay, I'm bringing Steven because he'll know how to keep us going on with the hydroponic agriculture. Okay, so moving on, with these 5 systems you've installed, are they growing food yet?
Yeah, so all of them are currently in operation. They're all growing food. the five that we installed in New York plus the one we installed in food pantry in Israel, those together are have the capacity to produce a little over 36,000 servings of produce, which is just about 10,000 pounds of produce each year.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So
And
we
then what are your expansion programs right now? Because with five producing that amount, there's got to be other people interested. And let's say best of all cases, you get together a board and some funding. Would this become an international project? Because you're already in two countries, the United States and Israel. How would you like to see that go? Because I'm guessing that one of the advantages of hydroponic agriculture, from what I've read about it, is that climate is irrespective of climate. You've got a place you can do this. You could be growing this in a desert or in a jungle or on the North Pole if you're in the right place, or on Antarctica. Essentially, this is transportable everywhere. So there's no limit to where you can go with this project if that's how it rolls. So what are your plans on that?
Yeah, so I guess our current expansion plans are just to utilize. We're currently staying in New York. We actually have an upcoming project planned, another partnership with Topeka and the LOHM at another prison, the Queensboro Correctional Facility. That's gonna get installed hopefully August 26th of this year. But yeah, so we're planning to install that and just continue utilizing our partners to give us more connections, reach out to more places, see if they're interested in hydroponic systems. And yeah, and obviously hoping to set up a board of directors to potentially expand it to different states where I won't actually be able to help with the installation or
Sure.
find new hydroponics partners, etc.
With that kind of project, when you have a facility that can produce 10,000 pounds of produce. My producer Ernie texted me and asked who bears the cost. What does it cost? What does an installation like this cost to put together and run? Mainly the startup. So when you're looking for funding, what sort of funding are you talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, the majority of our funding comes from grants that we apply for, grants or prizes that we apply for. We've received a couple significant ones, and then also if we ever get on like a huge news network, like CNN interviewed me recently because I won a CNN Young Wonder, CNN Heroes Young Wonder Award.
Yeah.
And so it was on air there, and that brought in a bunch of funding from people who watched the program. So those are our two primary methods of fundraising. And aside from that, I guess we use this funding to help install these systems. These systems normally cost about I mean, I guess our average system, depending on whether or not we get the farm service, might cost uh $8,000 to $15,000. But if we do get the farm service, which is basically we hire Green Food Solutions to come and maintain the system, then it could cost maybe 25 to $30,000,
Are
maybe
they
more.
another nonprofit company, or are they this system, these folks that give you the systems and install them? How long have they been in business, and what sort of structure of an outfit are they? Do they mesh well with your? I'm guessing that you're a nonprofit structure, or people are making donations. How does that whole side of it roll?
Yeah, so Green Food Solutions is a for-profit company, and we pay them to basically buy all the parts and to help us install it, and then either to do a training or to maintain the farm service.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And what's your structure in terms of people, donations and so forth? Are you a 501(c)(3)? What kind of a structure are you?
yeah, we're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit.
Okay, and are you the director?
Yeah, I'm
And
the
you,
director and the sole member.
the director and the sole member and the employee. Yeah, I love that. And you're doing wonderful things. I mean, it's incredible. You've got five already installed. Is the limit on the rest that you would like to install simply financial, or are you just, since you're getting going, this is such a new thing, relatively speaking, that with the publicity you've been getting recently with CNN and so forth, um, what kind of interest are you finding out there other than people, running an interview with you?
What do you mean? I guess I'll answer the first question. So, I mean, the main roadblock that we have is, yeah, one, financially, we can't we don't have the funds to install like 10 systems a year. We've actually been very lucky this year. We've been able to install two systems so far, and we have another one planned for later this year, which is the Queensboro facility. So,
Yeah.
systems in total this year. But I mean, financial and also just the time it takes to go through to send the Green Food Solutions over to scout the site, do the calculations, send over the proposal, make any edits, and then it takes anywhere, a couple weeks for the parts to arrive at the location. So that's another roadblock. It's mostly time and finances.
Does Green Food Solution handle some of the permitting issues? Because of course, obviously, if you're producing food for consumption in prisons or anywhere else, this gets into regulatory stuff, and inspections and all that. Of course, hydroponic is the cleanest form of agriculture there is, literally in every sense of the word. But um, what's been your experience on that kind of, bureaucratic holdups or other things that might impede what you're doing?
Yeah. So we've actually been very fortunate to not have any legal issues when it comes to installing these systems, permits, anything like that.
Right.
And if we have, they are mostly handled on the part of our partner organizations,
Mhm.
not Food Solutions, the nonprofits or the prisons that we're partnering with, and that because it's their location, it's their site, and so they can decide what to do with it there. But
Yeah. Hey, now I want to turn the page a little bit, and we don't have to go into this any more than you want to, because I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Far be it from me to want to do that. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, but I'm interested in you personally, um, in the sense that you started out with a very idealistic and beautiful proposal in Israel in terms of the conflict there, and irrespective of the politics of the Israel and the Palestinians and all the rest of it. Just talking to you as a 16-year-old, they're the same age as one of my granddaughters, and I'm a father of three grown children, and one of my grandsons, who's in his 20s, is now in regenerative farming. You and me have a lot of in common. By the way, I've been to Israel 3 times, and I've made movies there. I come out of the movie business, so we got that in common too. I'm an avid gardener, and I've got way too much basil this year if you need some. But other than that, I'm just interested personally, and I'm not looking for an answer on how to bring peace to the Middle East or taking sides on any conflict. So put all that out of your mind, and you don't have to dance around this. But just human to human, I've had things in my life where I had a very idealistic idea about something and then kind of got smashed in the face, either left, changed my point of view, and so old friends became enemies. But I've been there, done that. And I'm wondering how you feel, not about the conflict in the Middle East, but as a human and as a young man, having tried to do something good, and then just, you referred to the fact that since the conflict there, obviously projects like the one you had going are not exactly what's happening now. Instead, we're waiting to see what happens with a couple of wars on a couple of fronts. How's that been for you personally? I mean, you have the outlet of the good stuff in America that you're doing in the prisons and maybe other places, but has that been tough? How have you processed that? Have you had someone to talk to about that? And again, I'm not getting into politics. It's just human to human. How's that been for you? Because it's a noble thing that you did. And then all of a sudden it runs into this catastrophic situation. That's got to be tough. And how have you dealt with that? And what is your thinking on that now? Are you going to ever try to do something similar? Are you saying, hey, enough of that? I'll just stick with the projects in the US. I don't want to put words in your mouth. How's that all playing out for you?
yeah, so I guess with regards to Cindiana, I'm not actually like involved with Cindiana's projects, but
Sure.
I'm involved with the system that I installed in the food pantry in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
That's not actually like I mean, it's semi-political, because, it's Eritrean and Sudanese asylum seekers coming into Israel. But I guess with regards to Cindiana, I know it's been tough for them, and I've been keeping in touch as best I can, trying to get updates on what's going on there and how they're doing,
Yeah.
seeing if I can help in any way. And also the food pantry that we're working with, that we've worked with for the hydroponics installation, trying to do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't want this to be about me. I think it's more important to consider it's more important to consider Cindiana and how they're doing, and
Mm.
whether organizations like Cindiana will be able to survive even through this conflict. Because obviously, what we, especially at times like this, Cindiana has been struggling in times like this, but we need organizations like Cindiana in times like this because they're the ones that are trying to actively promote peace and collaboration. And I
Mm.
think that's the most important thing in the face of war.
Yeah, talk a little more about this food pantry and the Eritrean connection, because I think, if I have this right, and please explain, that food pantry serves some rather underserved communities. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit and who they are and why that's important and why it's different than other things that might be going on?
Yeah. So basically this food pantry opened up during COVID-19. I think 2020 they opened up. And basically,
In Tel Aviv.
yeah, in Tel Aviv.
Mhm.
They service Eritrean and Sudanese asylum seekers, well, all African asylum seekers basically, but the primary groups that are coming into Israel are from Eritrea and Sudan, who are fleeing their countries, coming to Israel, hoping for a better life. But they often find it hard to put food on the table for themselves and for their families because they don't have the same citizenship that Israelis do, and therefore, they don't get the same citizenship benefits that Israelis do when it comes to healthcare and food, that sort of thing. And so they find it hard to put food on the tables for themselves and for their families. And because of that, um, there was this organization that started up that it's called the Masala Lasova Food Pantry, and
Here,
they're
you said that quickly. I didn't catch it. It's
sorry,
called what?
the Masala Lasova Food Pantry.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. And so their goal is to primarily service these African asylum seekers so
Hmm.
that they can have a better life in Israel.
Now, have you been there to the food pantry?
Yes, actually, I visited it. Well, I was okay. So I installed the system in late 2021 after my bar mitzvah, where I fundraised for the system. Um, so I installed that system, and I got on like a Zoom at 4 in the morning because of the time difference, just to see the final parts of the installation. It kept getting postponed because of COVID, weather issues, that sort of thing. But we finally got it down to a specific date, and we got the system installed. And then I think it might have been last year was the first time that I was fortunate enough to actually go there and visit the system, which is it was really awesome. I met a bunch of people there. Um, and yeah, it looked great.
How much food are they growing with the system they've got?
So they are our largest system. And they are growing about, I think, 20,000 servings a year, I believe,
Hmm.
on their own, which is
And
pretty.
what produce are they growing in particular when you say servings of what?
So they're primarily growing leafy greens like basil, lettuce, cilantro, maybe some collard greens, that sort of thing, maybe mint. They may be growing fruiting crops, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't checked
Hmm.
in what they're growing in a while.
And
But
who works there? Are the people who are running the system, do they draw any of the population from the air trans and others into the actual project, or are the people mainly the clients who benefit from the food?
yeah, so mostly it's maintained by the volunteers at the food pantry. However, we wanted this system to take into account the experiences that these asylum seekers have had. So most of them actually they come into Israel. Basically, they come into Israel illegally. Um, they flee their countries. They basically have to. Uh, it's like a there are a lot of different documentaries on this, but it's an insane process. What they go through, they basically go through these like smugglers that smuggle them out of their countries
Hmm.
and basically get them to Egypt, close to Israel, as close as they can. And
Yeah.
then but in those they're in these tight, compact trucks. They're hungry, they're thirsty, they don't know what's going on. They're in the dark most of the trip. And so they kind of feel like they're losing control of their life when
Sure.
they're on their travels to Israel. But the mission of this hydroponic system, we wanted to take that experience into account, and we wanted them to feel like they had as much agency and control over their lives as possible. So
Mm,
we actually let them go in, help maintain the system, pick out what they're growing instead of just a regular food pantry. They might give you like a bag of produce and send you along. Here, you can go up to the system, feel the plants, pick out, oh yeah, I want this much basil and then maybe a little bit of this lettuce this time. Maybe
mm,
next week I'll grab some cilantro instead, so that they can have their own feeling of agency and control over their
mm,
lives, that they did not have when they were traveling to Israel.
mm. And when you oversee this, do you do this long distance? How much do you check in with this? Or now that it's a going thing, you kind of walk to the next assignment? How do you stay involved with these in it with the food pantry in Israel and these 5 centers in the US and the prison that you're helping out in and these other places? How hands-on is it for you, or do you just move on and find new places to be involved with, or how do you stay involved with these guys? I'm sure those individual stories sort of touch you and you want to keep going and find out what's going on. I mean, how does that all balance out for you personally?
Yeah, so regarding the system in Israel, obviously I can't go there every week or something to volunteer. But
Yeah.
I keep in touch with the director of the program there, the director of the food pantry, make sure everything's functioning properly. But then with the systems in New York, I've been volunteering uh at our systems for basically every week for a couple hours a week. I started just volunteering at the YMYWHA, but then I've also been volunteering at the Mashalou Montefiore Community Center, which is a another system that we've installed. And then throughout this summer, I've been volunteering at the Y and at the Edgecombe Residential Treatment Facility.
Mm.
Um, so I have been volunteering every week for a couple hours a week, at three of the five systems, um, that we've installed in New York.
So out of these relationships, you must make some new friendships, and that opens doors to seeing people in a different light. Most Americans are not aware of the plight of the Eritreans and so forth. I do a bit of reading, so I'm kind of aware of what's going on in that. But it must be an eye opener for you. How has that changed your own perspective of the world we live in and kind of a long range hopes and ambitions to influence change or to bring things about? You must see things very, very differently for having been involved on a hands-on level, knowing people, installing these systems, from prisoners to Eritrean refugees and asylum seekers. That's not the usual bailiwick for your average 16-year-old high school student in the US. That makes you a kind of an unusual person just in terms of life experience, let alone your ambition to do some good in the world. How has that affected you, and who are your new friends, and how do you see things a bit differently because of them?
Yeah, so I think especially the project my film that I did with Cindiana, well not with Cindy, but about Cindiana, that's really shifted my perspective and my philosophy about not only the conflict in Israel, but a bunch of different conflicts around the world. So what was explained to me is that um by the people that I interviewed from Cindiana is that basically so many people around the world, the reason that they don't think the conflict in Israel can be resolved is because it has so much history to it, and it's been going on for such a long time that nobody's willing to negotiate. Um, and so additionally, aside from that, within Israel and within basically, if you're raised in an Israeli family or if you are raised in an Arab or Palestinian family, you are taught, most families there are taught that the other side is this crazy group, and they're only taught that because the people that are teaching them that were taught the same thing. And
mm,
so it's this cycle of I guess increased hatred towards the other side
mm,
that can only be broken with individuals like the volunteers at Cindiana who take a step forward and take the risk of interacting with the other side to
mm,
figure out what they're really like. And then they figure out that these people are not what they have been told.
mm.
And they can actually be friends with them and collaborate with them and coexist with them. Um, and so I think it's changed my philosophy in the sense that um, now I believe in you just really have to take you have to be the first one to take uh, you have to be the person to take the first step.
Mm.
And as soon as you take that first step, that can solve so many issues when it comes to trying to create peace.
You were saying it's changed your view. How has it changed your view in terms of Israel itself? You mentioned it, you brought that up, so I'm going to follow through on it a little. What was your view before? How did it change it? What is your view now? Again, I'm not asking for some deep political analysis, just your own journey interests me.
Yeah, so I guess my view was similar to a lot of other people's views, which is that this conflict has been going on for such a long time, it can't be resolved. But then when I actually looked at organizations like Cindiana and I interviewed the volunteers at Cindiana, um, I learned that it can be resolved. It just, you have to be willing to take a scary first step.
Mm,
Once you do that, everything else kind of falls into place and peace can be created. And that's how it changed.
mm. How long are they out of business as it were now because of the conflict? Have they put everything on hold? Is anybody still growing any hydroponic stuff in their homes and collaborating, or is it all done? And where were they located physically? In terms of the women working together, where did they live, or do they live?
Yeah. So, I mean, uh, as far as right now, Cindiana, I believe is still in operation. It's been a few weeks since I checked in with them, but I believe they're still in operation. And obviously things have been harder for them, but I hope that the women are still growing hydroponics produce in their homes, and I think their other projects hopefully are doing well as well.
Hmm.
As far as where the women live, the actual organization that we visited is in the Galilee region of Israel. That's where
Sure.
the visitor center was as well. And so they have a bunch of different projects. They have a bunch of land where they grow olive trees and make olive oil. Actually, it's pretty cool. I tasted some of it; it's really good. But that's what they do at some
Hmm.
of their locations. And then the women don't actually live on site; they just live at their homes and come.
So on a personal note, how do you divide your time? I'm presuming you're still studying in high school somewhere, so are you going to be a senior in
I'm a
September?
rising junior.
Okay, so you're going to be a junior, and then you've got some high school studies to complete. You're running all these operations and traveling around. That just time-wise, this has to be a pretty tall order in terms of your own time management. How's that all working together? It's like talking to a high school student who gets cast in a continuing part in a TV drama. It's like, okay, you've got a tutor on set, but nevertheless, you're still a kid on one hand, and yet you're doing this kind of adult occupation. I've known some people like that in my life. And I'm asking you just how's that all work out for you day to day and fit in with what your parents want? I don't know if you have any siblings. I mean, what's the situation for you personally, Stephen, as you manage this stuff? It's an interesting problem.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess with regards to school, I'm taking a bunch of different hard classes, and I try. I mean, I do very well in school, and but it does consume a lot of time in my day.
Hmm,
Um, so some days I might not be able to work on growing peace and our projects as much as possible, as much as I can.
sure.
Um, I do, and I am planning to continue volunteering at our systems every week for a couple hours a week, even throughout next school year in my senior year.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it's hard, but I guess I feel like I'm very grateful to have supportive parents, and to have, I have a great brother as well.
Is
But
he older or younger than you?
he's a year and 2 days older than me.
Okay, so he's your senior. And have your parents helped you out with this? I'm presuming they've been uh, proud of you and helping you out, or not. And how's that all run in terms of them balancing your schoolwork against all of this and whatever concerns they might have? How's that all work out?
Yeah, so I mean, my parents, the growing piece is just me. I'm the one who manages all the projects and everything. But
Hmm.
obviously, I'm still a minor, so my mom helps me with legal paperwork and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
and setting up a bank account where people can donate to Growing Peace. Um, legal financial stuff that I can't do because of my age.
Have they been involved in things that have set them up to do this? I mean, it takes a certain amount of knowledge to do this. I'm not probing into what your parents do for a living, but I'm interested. In my household, I don't even know where the checkbook is. My wife Jeannie's visiting her sisters in California. I tried to deposit a check in the bank the other day, and I told the lady, I don't even know how to do this. It's, Jeannie's traveling. How do I do this? So I handed her my checkbook and she was able to figure out which account it was going into from that. And I deposited it. So we have really definite areas of expertise. So your mom sounds like Jeannie. She can handle things for you. What does she do for you? And what's her background in knowing how to run a nonprofit and keep you out of jail?
Um, that's a teenager. So I mean, my mom, it's just me when it comes to Growing Peace, and running the nonprofit.
Sure, but
The
the business side of it, setting up the accounts and all that, somebody, like you're saying, you're still a minor.
Yeah, so I mean, my mom helps me with just, I mean, it's really just setting up the bank account, and then just helping to fill out the 501(c)(3) form. That's about it,
But
honestly.
are you named as president or chairman of the board, or how's that work? What's your position on paper?
My position is I'm the executive director.
Well, there you are.
Uh,
So, and I don't, so an executive director of a nonprofit that's not old enough to vote yet, that's an interesting paradox. But that's pretty cool. You're a pretty cool guy. I love that. So are your friends involved in any of this? Your high school friends, or do they just think you're weird and this guy's nuts? He's off building hydroponic systems in women's prisons while we're, doing what? You've got a very different path from some of your contemporaries. Some of them helping you out.
well, I mean, some of them, a couple of them know about what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
I mean, they don't like say, oh yeah, you're weird or anything. They're supportive, but some of them know what I'm doing. But as far as whether or not they're involved, um, they're not involved with my organization yet. Even though I am hoping to set up a youth board of directors, I may get some of my peers involved. But I'm also looking to use some of the awards or connections I have,
Yeah.
with other youth awardees. If I get an award, and it's a youth prize, then I might connect with other youth awardees to see if they'd be interested in coming along, that sort of thing. But my friends are not involved
If
with Grown.
someone wants to donate, we're going to put links to you when we post this. So for those people listening live here, once we put this up on YouTube and all the places our podcasts go, we will put links. Let's see, because we're in conversation with Frank Schaeffer on Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe to that. And my Substack, this is me, Frank Schaeffer, as it has to be said, at frankschaeffer.substack.com. All those places that references to Stephen and what he's doing will show up. We'll put links to him. So if you want to donate and help him out, we would encourage you to become one of his donors. And I want to ask you, what would somebody who donates to you right now be donating to? I know you've described what you're doing, but have you got current projects going ahead that, we'll have a link to Growing Peace Inc. at growingpeaceinc.org. That will go up. But if I wanted to donate to you, aside from the whole story you've told and what you're currently doing, what does a donation facilitate in terms of next steps to put more of these facilities in food pantries, prisons, wherever you're going with that? What are we actually helping happen?
Yeah, so because we don't have any operational costs. We're not like a physical, so we don't have a physical site or anything.
Sure.
Um, and we don't have any paid workers. That means that 100% of whatever you decide to donate will go directly to whatever our next project is. And as far
Yeah.
as what that might be, we're thinking about potentially installing a system in a Native American reservation, Pine Ridge, but we're not exactly sure, honestly. We may do some more installations at different prisons. We may do some more at community centers, food pantries. We're still figuring that out.
Of all
But
the ones you've done so far, which are the ones where you're saying, aha, that one's really working well. We need to do more of that. It sounds like the food pantry in Tel Aviv is one of those. It sounds like the prison system is very satisfying. Is a model emerging where you're saying, yeah, this really made a difference to the life of the people in prison. This really made a difference to the Eritreans who get to come in and pick their own food. What are you most satisfied with in terms of how that would help crystallize future plans? Like, oh, this is what works best. What have you learned, and how will that apply to future projects people might donate to?
yeah, so I mean, I'm very satisfied with all of the projects that we've done.
Yeah,
Each of the projects that we've done helps a different group of people. So the food pantry in Tel Aviv helps asylum seekers. The prison goes to prison residents and the staff. The LOHM Hope House system goes to these formerly incarcerated women. The YMYWHA helps to educate young children, and also donates to low income or disabled
when you
seniors.
say educates young children, do they participate in the actual growing project and learn how to do it?
Yeah, so the organization that we've partnered with, the Young Men and Young Women Hebrew Association of Washingtonites,
Yeah.
they are basically like an after school program kind of thing. And so that we have young kids coming in and feeling the hydroponic systems, working with it, harvesting, testing the water quality, putting new seeds in, that sort of thing. And so they're actively getting hands-on experience with hydroponic projects.
That's incredible. Yeah, really good. Yeah. And I presume some of these kids, this kind of changes their view of the world, but also gets them interested in something, that's really, much better for them than staring into a phone or doing, Lord knows what. But um, have you seen that have you gotten feedback from anybody, for instance, from the prison or Tel Aviv or wherever, where, some lives have been affected in a positive way that goes beyond simply the project, just the involvement, the agency that they're given, the learning curve for the kids? I mean, surely if I was stuck in prison, the ability to work on a hydroponic system would be such a relief to me, of something living and beautiful and growing, and you can produce things from it. You've got to be getting some feedback that's kind of encouraging.
Yeah, so I think as far as that goes, the aside from just installing and donating the produce, one of my favorite parts of the projects is the educational aspect, the educational portion, which is that we will offer a service to anybody who wants it to learn about hydroponics and to potentially either pursue it as a future career option or maybe even just as a future interest. And I've
Yeah,
seen so many people's faces light up with joy when they work with the hydroponic system, and that's satisfying to me, and that makes me happy to see that they're not only just being fed better with the system and with what it produces, but that they're having a good experience with it, and that the system and the experience is making them happy and improving their lives beyond just the nutrients that it provides them.
yeah. Good, good answer and good program. So in wrapping this up, is there some aspect of your project we haven't discussed that you would have liked to have been asked about, but I haven't asked you about? And let's finish up on, give you the last word and ask what that might be, or any other thoughts you have closing this out. We will put links to everything you're doing. We would urge people to donate. I don't usually do that. I interview a lot of authors and people that make movies, and I say, buy their book, or I don't, sometimes. But in your case, I can actually just say, this is a worthwhile project to donate to. And I'll send you a donation, so you'll see
Oh,
something
thank you.
showing up. I don't know whether we send you a check. How do people donate? They go online and to growingpeaceinc.org, and then what do we do? Do a bank thing or a transfer or a credit card? How's that work?
Yeah, so you can just go to growingpeaceinc.org. I think in the top right, there's just like a donate button, and then you can put in your credit card details. PayPal, I think it accepts that. Um, whatever, what I mean, a bunch of different payment methods that you can donate,
Good.
however much you want.
Good.
Yeah,
Well, I'll send you a donation. Look, I don't know if you see the names of people who donate or not, and I don't care. I'm not looking for anything, but I certainly will put my money where my mouth is. I will
thank you very
donate
much.
to you in the next bit. Ernie, my producer, knows I forget stuff. Ernie, email me what I'm supposed to do in terms of a link, and I'll do the donating. So
Thank you
not
very
everybody
much.
has a producer that reminds them for doctor's appointment or whatever it is, but Ernie helps me out with my schedule, and I will ask him to put this on the schedule. And Ernie, let's find ways to get other people to donate too. Let's make it easy for everyone to donate to Stephen and his projects. I can picture the hydroponic systems and I love them. I have picked
Thank you very much.
produce from them myself and on people's projects, and where you're putting them prisons just right. That's what people need who are there. I love the idea of giving agency to political prisoners and refugees who have flown from Eritrea, wherever. Um, this is good stuff you're doing.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and stay in touch with us. You let Ernie and me know any new development. We'll have you back, make you part of a panel to talk about more stuff. Give my best to your mom. Thank her for helping out, and all the best with everything. This is really great.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, yep.
Having me on.
I'll send you a donation.